Hello and welcome to another episode of 10x Hacks for Startup and Venture Success. This is your host Vida Patil and this is part 2 of the podcast with Professor Vinesh Khashu. Professor Khashu is Professor of Perinatal Health and he's a consultant neonatologist at the National Health Services.
We should not expect a post-COVID that suddenly the need for face-to-face consultations or the need for example, examining patients and finding what's wrong with them will go away, because that's now how medicine is.
In part 1 of the podcast, Professor Khashu talked about 3 P's of product development, the requirements a startup needs to look into before building a product in the healthcare scenario. He went into in-depth analysis of customer segmentation and who and why a product is being built for. In the current segment, Professor Vinesh Khashu explores the future of digital health, how data sharing can be made meaningful and insightful, also time sensitive, and how eliminating middlemen will make the connection between doctor and patient very strong. In United States, the problem is data is fragmented. It's not in a consistent workflow. If you want to study something, there is no longitudinal data available. If you look at India, their even adoption of basic healthcare services, there is a lot of fragmentation. So in that sense, what kind of innovation are you talking about in data?
Okay, couple of things. So I think um, if you look at, say, for example, if you look at COVID, so COVID, like any difficult situation, as they say, necessity is the mother of invention. COVID has catalyzed some innovations. COVID has accelerated some. And one of the areas that has perhaps been accelerated is remote consultation, remote monitoring, and that sort of stuff. And it is unfortunate, obviously, that so many lives have been lost to COVID, and not just lost. I think one of the worst things with COVID has been that people have died with near and without near and dear ones near them, and it died in a very sort of inhumane way. And I think I hold myself as part of the healthcare community all across the world partly responsible that we didn't necessarily prepare as well as a global health community for a pandemic like this, and we have let people down. Whether our politicians or whether the big global leaders put up their hands or not, I personally feel as a global health community we were not prepared for this pandemic, and we have let ourselves and our societies down by so many people dying, and dying within inverted commas in a very inhumane way. So I think that's the first thing. But what the COVID has done as a disruptor in that sense is it has accelerated a significant amount of online stuff. So whether it's online meetings or whether it's online teaching or whether it's online and remote consultation and stuff like that. I don't think post COVID it's all gonna stay the same. But I think what it will do is, I think it's interesting that when people see graphs, they can see a very smooth graph going up like this. But if you even take a small graph like this, if you actually go deep into it, you will see that that graph is actually made up of staircases.
Yeah,
But
yeah. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
it appears like a smooth curve. It never is. It never is. And any disruptor like COVID will perhaps shift us from, say, this to the next step. And that next step is pretty reasonably steep, because we will perhaps see some facilitation of remote monitoring, remote consultation stuff. I don't think everything that was being done face to face will become online. I think that's neither safe nor practical. But a lot of triaging that was being done face to face can be done online. So I think some proportion of consultation, some proportion of monitoring will be pushed to a digital online format, which is going to be good for healthcare and is going to be good for everybody concerned. Having said that, we should not expect post COVID that suddenly the need for face-to-face consultations, or the need for example, examining patients and finding what's wrong with them will go away, because that's now how medicine is. We've been doing medicine like that for hundreds of years. There's obviously need to change to a different paradigm, but you can't give up some of the important aspects of face-to-face consultation, not just for diagnostic, but the social impact, the social connection that you have between, say, patient and doctor, or nurse or doctor. Those are quite important. Those are quite important. So I think that's important, always to remember, because I think people are very sort of easily drawn into um, sort of a black and white scenario, whereas it's not a black and white scenario. It's largely a gray scenario. There'll be some areas where there will be definitely a need, a way of doing remote stuff, but there will be some areas where definitely there's no way you can do it remotely, and there'll be some areas in between which are gray. And over time, once we get better and better, we will figure it out. Coming back to your primary question, I did digress there, but I wanted to sort of highlight the COVID business, because I think it's something I feel quite passionately about. So, in terms of digital transformation and data, even though I understand there's a lot of places in the world that are still not digitalized, a lot of patient-related data might be still on paper format and not digital.
Right.
Wherever it is still digital, we are still not using that data. So if you ask me, all the patients in all the hospitals in the world every day are providing data. How much percentage of that data do we use to generate insights? I don't think we use more than 10% of that data.
Yeah, my question is, can you generate insights with small fragments of data, or do you need like large amounts of data? Because they may be stationary in time. Insight may be applicable to that particular time frame in that situation. If it has to, right. So I was wondering what your thoughts are on that.
Okay. So I think we definitely need bigger volumes of data, because to integrate them, we need them. So you can't come to conclusions about data if your time frames are too long. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
And why do we, if you look at research traditionally, why do we do research over long periods of time, or at least 2 3 years, 4 years, 5 years? Why do we do that? Because we are looking at small number of people.
right,
Okay.
right. Mm-hmm.
So if you, for example, let me give you an example. If we say wanted to look at mental health of people
Yes.
related to COVID, yeah, for example, as an example, 3 months worth of data would be fine if we had a large chunk of the global population involved in that data set.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so the timelines would be short as well. The only reason we need longer timeline generally is because we don't have the numbers. So if UK does its own bit, or within a region of UK we do our own bit, the data sets are small. But once we start connecting the data sets to generate big data, and then we can obviously use machine learning and AI, we will come to solutions much quicker. So they will be relevant. They won't be 10-year-old stuff. They
Right.
can be much quickly, and this needs to be the norm. It's not as part of a study you need to
Yeah.
do it.
Yeah.
The connection is quite important. I think that's an important point, because a lot of the data sets are not connected with each other. And even within the same hospital system, say in the UK, a hospital could easily have 25, 30 different data systems who
Right.
don't know each other. So I think that is a big problem. Having said that, and information governance is quite important as well. Having said that, one of the things that needs to be catalyzed, is there are two ways to do it. One is to catalyze sharing of anonymized data sets. So obviously you don't want to share personal data, but anonymized data sets could be. So to give you an example, uh, there are about 60,000 deliveries in the UK in a year. Yeah. Out of those 60,000 deliveries in the UK, about 10% of those get admitted to neonatal units. So let's say 6,000 babies. Yeah.
Right.
If I looked, so one way would be, at least rather than me looking at the neonates in my unit alone, which might be 300, 400, 500, if in an anonymized way I could ask the same question of a 6,000 big data set, then I have a better chance of getting the right answer.
Right.
Now, if you then say, if my UK anonymized data set links with a pan-European data set or a American data set, then we have 60, 70,000 babies in a data set. So
Yes.
my chance of asking the right questions of the data set and answering uh, the questions that are important clinically becomes much higher.
Right.
And that is the way I think we will have to shift from a traditional research paradigm primarily. I think we
Mhm.
need traditional research, but we will have to shift from that paradigm into a paradigm where we have big data, we have linked data sets, and we regularly interrogate them. But also, you can generate digital cohorts.
I
Yeah.
see. What is that? Can you elaborate a little bit?
Digital cohort would be, so for example, you could start a cohort, say, of newborns who were born in 2020, could be continually collected in an anonymized way, um, and you could follow them up in terms of who gets disease, who doesn't get disease, what is their nutrition like, and so you're following them in a digital way, uh, regularly. And that's how data needs to work. Data should not be uh, just about going for a particular research study. So let me give you an example.
Thank you for listening to the podcast 10x Hacks for Startup and Venture Success. This is your host, Vida Patel. I'm bringing you interviews of investors and founders from Silicon Valley and across the globe. This podcast takes a lot of time and effort, so please support this by subscribing to my iTunes, SoundCloud, and LinkedIn podcast pages. Also, please leave your valuable feedback. I will try to make this podcast better with your comments. Thank you so much.
Well, when we needed to study something or find something 30, 40 years back, what did we do? We used to go to a library. Yeah. So you needed something to be answered, you had a question, what did you do? You used to go to a library. Okay. What do we do today? We have that library on our fingertips.
Right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's the change paradigm. So similarly, research should not be about setting up necessarily a research study for a particular condition. It should be a regular collection of data with regular interrogation of that data, uh, to keep giving the clinicians insights. So, for example, if you look at all the patients who got, say, admitted with COVID, who went on a ventilator during the pandemic, if international data sets were combined, for example, people would quickly get insights of what medications are working and what are not working, which people are faring worse than others. And this should be a regular process of data collection, data analysis, interrogation, and generating insights, rather than specific research. So it's almost part of your clinical care that you are regularly reviewing your data and understanding things better, and in a time limited way. It's not 6 years later you tell me uh, how things were 6 years back. It needs to be in a time critical way.
Yes.
Things need to come around much quicker, and that will only happen through digitalization, through data sets that link with each other, and sort of work efficiently. So that's one bit. But the other bit, which perhaps is more important, is when I am linking with data, say in hospitals or in clinics and stuff. uh, I am one step away from the patient.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm one step away from the individual. So you have generated middlemen, and when you generate middlemen, you always create inefficiency. You always create hurdles for yourself because you have to focus to the interests and the needs of the middleman in addition to your primary customer.
Right. Right.
So one of the important ways to innovate and use a startup paradigm within healthcare is using data in ways that you get rid of the middleman.
Right. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Look at, say, if you look at the, for example, things like sort of the Fitbits and stuff like that, what are they doing?
Yeah.
uh,
Directly
they,
they're getting data from the consumer, right?
so, and the consumer is directly getting his or her own data, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah, no middleman, exactly. That's amazing. So Minesh, uh, I had this question about case reports, right? You write case reports every day that captures your clinical findings, isn't it? Is there some way you can digitize case reports and make it available across globally available? Because it is very much within the time frame. Like this is patient X in the month of August on this day, and this is what I found interesting about this case, and make it available to everyone. And if there's a way of generating an insight, like uh, like you mentioned, data is lacking insights even though there is data. You think that's going to help?
It will. I think some of that is, again, so some of that is about sort of learning, for example. So at the moment, traditionally, how do we share learning, or how do we share unusual experiences or unusual patients or situations, is we will write it up and we'll publish it in a journal. That's quite in some ways cumbersome, time consuming, and there's a limit to how much can go in the journals in the world. But again, if even if I end up doing the hard work and publishing it, there's a limit to the person on the receiving end, how much is going to be able to read and stuff like that. So I
Right.
think digitally what will potentially happen is we will have innovations which crystallize the main learning from bigger data sets, from bigger experiences, much quicker, much faster, so that things change quite quickly. So you must know very well that we tend to compare healthcare safety and improvement a lot of times with the aviation industry. Yeah. And one of the areas where healthcare goes wrong is you could have mistakes happening in one part of the healthcare domain with the other parts not knowing about it. Whereas in the aviation industry, generally, when a mistake happens, it's escalated quite to a high level, and people are made aware, and people have to train, and people have to certify when they do their whatever annual certifications or whatever. They need to know about it, and need to have solutions to it. So I think one of the ways uh, that innovation can help in that domain is creating that global community where some of that learning is disseminated in real time quite quickly.
Right.
Um, that if an error has happened in a part of the world, quickly everybody working with that equipment, with that medicine, with that sort of condition becomes aware that this is a problem, and they need to be aware of. So I think a well connected digitalized world will hopefully help with regard to safety and improvement in that perspective as well.
Such an amazing vision. I mean, I'm speechless the way you described the last 10 minutes, the vision of this digitally connected healthcare systems across the globe. I'm totally speechless. It can only come from a doctor. It probably cannot come from an engineer or an AI scientist. It has to come from a doctor. So I'm truly enthralled by all the insights you shared today. The 3P vision, customer centric approach, and digging deep into who your customer is and what problem you're solving. And now you're talking about the importance of taking away middlemen from data, collecting insights from data, and now finally you're weaving this grand vision. I think either you should build it yourself, or there should be a startup doing that, or maybe there are many doing that. I don't know, but it's truly a vision which needs to be pursued. I think that's where the next disruption is going to come from.
So I think I would welcome and support it embrace it with open arms, really, yeah.
Awesome, great. Thank you, Minesh, for an amazing podcast. This will truly inspire the not only the doctors and the healthcare professional community, but also the engineers, the data scientists, and the healthcare policy group, the governance of various nations who are having reservations like GDPR or privacy. I hope they really hear people out like you who are trying to make a difference here. Before I wrap up the podcast, any parting thoughts you want to share with your audience? Any specific message you have? I do see your passion for the healthcare community. I can definitely sense that. But before we wrap up, anything you'd like to say?
No, I think as I said at the start, I think I would like to congratulate people who are in the startup domain. It's not an easy place. I think it sort of tells me that you are passionate, you are eager, you have the belief, you have the confidence. So I think that's all great, and you need to pat yourself on the back regarding that. So my only take-home message is largely you need to understand the why better. You need to understand who your customer is, or who the range of your customers could be, and then tweak and refine and fine tune your product or service to that customer. Um, I would strongly urge to try to get middlemen taken away and focus on your primary customer, and talk to people within the domain. So if you are developing a disease sort of intervention, or you're developing a device, or you're developing something for a patient group, take extra time to talk to as many clinicians as you can, take extra time to talk to as many patients with that condition as you can, because that is quite valuable information, and that will help you to perhaps devise the best product that you can. And good luck. I'm happy to helping and support that they might need within healthcare domain. Yeah.
Thank you for listening to the podcast 10x Hacks for Startup and Venture Success. This is your host, Vida Patel. I'm bringing you interviews of investors and founders from Silicon Valley and across the globe. This podcast takes a lot of time and effort, so please support this by subscribing to my iTunes, SoundCloud, and LinkedIn podcast pages. Also, please leave your valuable feedback. I will try to make this podcast better with your comments. Thank you so much.